said that he approaches painting the same way that he approaches his photography. It's Boris Vallejo, by the way, who does a lot of the bodybuilding paintings for like the Mr. Olympia stuff, plus his own fantasy artwork, and his partner Julie Bell does a lot of stuff, and they do some work together, very similar art styles. But I'm not going to be able to quote this exactly, I can't find my book anywhere, but he's talking, forgive my dog, she just dropped her bone in front of me. Anyway, Boris Vallejo said, once again, that he approaches his painting in the same way that he approaches his photography, looking at the play of light and shadows. And like I said, I'm not quoting this exactly, I'm paraphrasing the sentiment, but the interplay of light and shadow is important, not just in painting and art, but in all of life. You see, light and shadow give each other meaning. You know, we know this, the duality of, my dog is insane right now, but the duality of life and nature, you know, the Chinese observed this and saw it in their own interpretations with the yin and yang, and you know, the trigrams and you know, the I Ching divination and the Tao, and you know, the duality of life has been noted. And I use the Chinese because it's the most familiar example to me, but you know, you may be able to think of dualities in other you know, social or mythological or religious paradigms, old observations. People have noticed that one thing often does not happen without another thing happening. It's the cost and benefit, once again. Now, in reference to what I'm thinking here, I want you to think about positivity and negativity. In the health and wellness community, in the fitness community, in many of the self-help communities, people are very, very intensely focused on the positive. They want positive this, positive that, because positive makes us feel good. But think also that these are relatively moralistic interpretations of these terms. Positive and negative don't naturally have any moral connotation. You see, positive and negative, think of it scientifically, are just alternate spins. Using it in a physics perspective, you know, you have electrons and protons with opposing charges. And also speaking, this is interesting, electrons are much smaller, protons are much larger, but the much smaller thing has the same amount of charge as the much larger thing. Do you realize that we remember negative things more frequently than we remember positive things? Negativity, as we have labeled it, has a stronger impact per pound, per unit, however you would say. So it does need to be carefully moderated, but it is not a bad thing. As far as incentives go, to stick with something, you realize that the fear of loss is a much greater incentive than the hope of gain. Fear of loss is a greater incentive than hope of gain. Yes. Now, does that mean you shouldn't hope for gain? No. But it means the two can work and counterbalance each other. And you can't have any meaning to the light without shadow. I love the light. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Lots of sunshine all the time, except for today with today's fucking freak hailstorm. Anyway, the light is a great, great, great thing. But light can't exist without casting a shadow on the things that it casts upon. Otherwise, all is simply light. In order for light to not cast shadow, there has to be nothing. Light simply by itself. If you are single, solitary, alone, it kind of is a meaningless existence, isn't it? And then, not that existence has any meaning. I don't want you to think that. The meaning is your own, however you choose, but that's not this discussion. Light casts a shadow because things stand in the way of the beam, and the shadow then gives definition to those things. Light enlightens, not to use dictionary definition with the root word and the definition and all that, but light brings things into view. But without the definition of shadow, we would still not be able to see anything. It would all be just a wash in light. It would be meaningless. Shadow, of course, darkness, without light, once again, is meaningless. Light and dark must play off of one another. Positive and negative must play off of one another. The duality of existence is there, not for any supernatural reason. There is no supernatural reason. But it has a purpose, or at least it has a perceived purpose, and that is to give definition to life. So while you shouldn't necessarily focus on the negative, because remember, negative has more impact by volume than positive does, it still is an important part. The light and the shadow. You realize we need more light than shadow. The shadow, as little as it is, creates significant enough definition, has greater impact than the light in and of itself. Once again, negative holds a little more weight, or holds a little more power, I should say. I don't, because the electrons weigh a lot less, and if you're anchoring to that idea, just remember that I'm not trying to give you conflicting information. Negativity holds more power. Positivity is fluffier. It's not as dense. And so it can afford to have more volume because that volume is less costly. Negativity, volume is rather costly, so we keep it small and dense and concentrated. And the two, working in tandem, creates the beautiful definition of life. Sometimes too much definition for some people, and when that ratio gets out of whack, then we have your manic times and your depressive times, and we have your angry times and your just giddy times. There's always a push and pull, a soft and a hard. It's just the interplay of life. Roll that over a bit, think about it. Until next time, good journey.